Have you ever questioned whether your degree aligns with the career opportunity that you truly want? My guest today, Brian McAllister, found himself asking that very question during his senior year of college. Rather than follow the traditional internship route, Brian and a few friends hit the road in an RV and drove across the country meeting professionals and asking the important questions. How did you figure it out? What advice would you give someone who is just starting out? That road trip sparked something bigger than any of them could have ever imagined. It became the foundation for Roadtrip Nation, a movement that, for the past 25 years, has helped thousands of young people explore career paths through real conversations and storytelling. Today, I'm excited to reconnect with my friend Brian, co-founder of Roadtrip Nation, and talk about the power of curiosity, lived experience, and finding your own way forward. Let's get started and get some scholar scoop from Brian. Hey there, Brian. Thank you so much for chiming in here for some scholar scoop with me today. How are you doing?
Good, good. Stoked to be a part of it.
That makes me feel so happy. I always love any time I get to talk to you, as you well know. And I was going to ask you, do you remember the first time that I actually talked to you?
I'm guessing it was at maybe a career conference in San Francisco. Uh,
Yes, it was. It was
2003, 2002, 2000, maybe 2003.
I was going to say 2003 or maybe four.
Okay.
Um, and it was in San Francisco because I don't know if you know Carl Martellino or not, but he was the president that year of WACE, which is the
Okay.
Western Association of Colleges and
Yep.
Employers. So he's like, you
Yeah.
have to come out here for my WACE conference. I'm in charge of it or something. I wouldn't normally go for that, but I got out there and I had a little bit of jet lag. And before the keynote, I went to get in the hot tub. I thought it would be a nice, relaxing thing to do for my jet lag. And there were three of you guys in the hot tub. And I started chatting with you. And then I said, I got to go because I got to go in for this thing in just a little bit. And you didn't disclose in the hot tub that you were actually the three keynote speakers that were going to be on the stage.
Yeah.
And the thing that I was shocked about were the three of you popped out on stage. I'm like, wait, that's the guys from the hot tub, right? But you were also still wet. Your hair
Yeah.
was wet. I
Yeah.
was like, these guys are amazing. Like, look at them. Like, and then the whole thing was so inspiring. So it was that point from the hot tub to the stage to I knew like, oh, these are three guys that I really do want to get to know and to learn more about their story and to figure out how maybe we can be somehow connected. So it's been great to have known you now since the 2000s. Thanks for
That's
talking to me in the hot tub. You know,
incredible. That's
sometimes that can
incredible.
be creepy, maybe. I don't know, but but definitely it was a lot of fun. I definitely remember that so well. But anyway, so I thought we could chat a little bit about that, maybe the same story a little bit that you were telling back in 2003 or four, about Road Trip Nation, which is the organization that, you guys started up back in about 2001. And, that's a long time ago now, right?
Yeah, it's getting longer. It that in the rearview mirror, Steve, those early days are getting further and further back. But yeah, it's fascinating. You just triggered so many different memories of that day in particular. But that was a ritual that we always had when we hit the road, was that we always snuck into hotel lobbies and jacuzzis, and that's how we started our days. So we didn't change it for a keynote address. But go figure too, like just around career advice and career guidance. And here we've built lives and we've built an organization that's all about exploration and discovery and maybe first impressions. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's true, but that was a good first impression from my perspective. I bet some of the career center people that were in the room were probably slightly scandalized, if I had to guess.
A
Maybe at
little
the
bit.
start. By the time you finished, I know you'd won them over. Um, so why don't you tell us all about the story of Road Trip Nation and how that all came to be?
Yeah, so Road Trip Nation started out, myself and two of my best friends. We're in college, like so many other students are, and we're just trying to figure out what we were going to do for a summer internship and what we are going to do after graduation, and kind of how we were going to apply and our degrees to careers, and we just didn't identify with a lot of the career paths that we were exposed to, Steve. Like we really were, it's almost from like a point of frustration. We just didn't really feel that we were totally aligned to the degrees that we were earning in college, and then the career paths that we were going to pursue. And so we decided, instead of an internship, to take a road trip across the United States and talk to people who had gone before us and ask them, how did you get, to where you are in life? How did you transition from college? Like, how did you figure it all out? Like, what were some of the keys to your career? What advice do you have for us? Was there ever times in your lives that you felt that you were lost or displaced? And we just really wanted to have sincere and authentic conversations about this transition from college to career, because that's where we were at. And this was our senior year in college, and kind of the world we felt was there's a lot of opportunity, but there was a lot of just kind of anxiety as well. And so we really felt compelled to go out there and talk to people, and kind of just get some advice and get some insight, and to see how others define their own roads. And little did we know that that would be the very beginning to a 25-year mission that's all around empowering people to define their roads in life, and really just anchored on road trips and exploration and transformation and interest based approach to figuring out who you are and what options are out there.
Well, you literally hit the road. I mean, you took someone's RV or
With
something.
my
Wasn't it
parents.
one of your parents had?
It was my
Yeah,
parents.
your
It was my
parents?
parents' old beat up motorhome with the last bit of cash that we had. We bought it from them. We hit the road. We funded our road trip on credit card debt, and we spent 3.5 months on the road. And we had cold called over 85 different leaders from different walks of life prior. So we spent all summer in 2001, from pretty much June through September, and we just cold called people that we cold called leaders, different people from different industries, from all levels. And we just wanted to kind of, like I said, kind of just hear how other people got to where they are in life. And so we spent 3.5 months kind of building the whole road trip. And then we hit the road in September of 2001, and we're on the road for just about 3 months.
So you were listening to leaders talk about their path and how they got to where they are, maybe how they define success. But through that, you necessarily didn't hear from one leader that inspired you. You got the inspiration to create a movement. Is that how it went?
Yeah, more or less. Like when we had an opportunity, we had some uh, we met some folks in New York that really saw maybe this could turn out to a book. So they kind of asked us, what did you guys want to do with this? And we're like, we really haven't really thought much about it. We were filming the whole experience. We weren't film producers. We weren't media. We weren't earning degrees in media. But we did feel like we wanted to at least capture it and share some of these experiences different ways. And so we did get an opportunity to write our first book. And that was kind of the beginning to what we felt was less about our road trip and more about, could we be a platform? Could we be almost just like a model for other students to build out their own road trip experiences, to have similar experiences and similar conversations. So we really felt that the whole time, Steve, that we were on the road while we were driving, the intention was for us to find our own kind of discovery and guidance and connectedness. But it was really more about who could we share this to, and who else could go, who else would want to have a similar experience. So that's where our first book was really less about our road trip, and we really wanted to push it out to, it's really more about how do we engage and allow others to participate, and have a similar experience.
So from there, you started creating these opportunities for students to actually apply and be selected and then put them out on these road trips. Is that kind of what
Yeah,
happened next after you
that's
got
right.
your? Your first one
That's
under your belt?
that's exactly. So we hit the road in 2001. The conference that we were just reflecting on in '04, we had just put our first team of road trippers through, Ryan, Randy, and Mike from New York and University in Georgetown. We were sharing their stories for like the very first time at that conference that you were at, demonstrating to career counselors how other students were hitting the road, having career conversations, talking about their interest and their exploration on their own. So we're actually sharing footage of the first students that we had actually just put on the road at that career conference that we were just talking about.
Yeah, that's amazing. And so now it's been 25 or more years. How many students have participated in Road Trip Nation?
So now we have various ways to participate, and we have different experiences to participate. They're not all in green and blue motorhomes, but we have put well over 100. Gosh, we've done probably close to. That's a great question, Steve. It's not one that I totally reflect on all the time. We've probably done over 100 road trips now. So we've put over 300, 400 students on road trips in green and blue motorhomes. But really, where we've been putting so much of our energy is other ways to kind of scale these types of experiences. So we're kind of diving more into the
Wow.
digital space these days. And there's other ways to build road trips, and not everybody can necessarily say, I've got 3.5 weeks to carve off and I'm going to travel the United States. So we've been trying to find more ways to engage. But yeah, that we're still doing road trips. We conduct about 12 a year, and we're still going across the United States. We've got an amazing cohort of an amazing organization that puts those trips together. But we're still doing them 24 years later. We're still putting road trips together.
Like, how do you measure your success? Like, how do you know that this is having the positive impact that you want it to do? Is it easy to measure, or is it anecdotal, or kind of what's the
Oh, it's such a
takeaway
great
there?
that's such a great question. How do you measure success? We've gotten really excited about just trying to find different ways to measure impact. And I can talk about impact metrics, but I feel like that's more of an evolution for us. When we first started, Steve, it was really about how do you identify and just find inspiration, and how do you then drive that to perspiration to pursue the careers or the credentials needed within kind of industry sectors or other opportunities that align to your interests. So we were really passionate about more of um, the emotional side of engaging and enthusiasm and sincerity and authenticity, and not necessarily looking at industries or career opportunities through an eye of like LinkedIn or like a resume, but almost like what's more of the
Mm,
context around that. And let's see if we can level the playing field of like, how did these leaders, like, how did they overcome failure? Like, where was the adversity? Where were the struggles? And so we kind of, Steve, like some researchers a few years back came across Road Trip Nation and said, you guys are almost like your organization is almost an ethnographic approach to career exploration. We've kind of backed into some of these more like the
mm.
how to, what you need to get jobs and what you need for careers. But now we measure so much of our success on impact, and really looking at impact metrics and the data and the different learners that are coming across Road Trip Nation. So it's definitely evolved. But honestly, Steve, like as you would probably relate to, when you build an organization and you bootstrap, we were just kind of just focused on survival for the first dozen years. We were like, oh, can we do this again? How can we afford to kind of put other people on road trips? And then now it's a little more stable, it's a little more self-sustaining. But we've definitely evolved that response around success. I mean, it's taken us quite a few years to really work, kind of dial it in.
But I think the lesson that I always heard in your story is like, you just have to start something, right? You have to start doing it and then figure it out as you almost go along. Because what you know now, you certainly couldn't have known to be able to even start with that. So it makes a lot of sense that now you're looking more at impact and you're kind of getting a grasp on it because you've done a lot of things that give you something to actually measure, which is
Yes,
a process, right?
totally.
When you think about it, though, 25 or more years ago, what's different today? Like, do you think you could have started or you could start Road Trip Nation today the same way that it came together back in 2001?
Yeah, I do, Steve. I think there's just so many different channels of information out there. And while we weren't like film majors and we weren't like producers, but what we were excited about was like sharing stories and storytelling. And I think
Mhm.
there's just different channels now that you could probably explore. Like we were drawn to capturing it, and then we found a broadcast partner through public television. I would say there's probably a half
Yeah.
dozen other media entities now that might look at broadcasting and distributing content in different ways. But that was a big opportunity for us, was coming across the right folks with public television. But when it comes down to who you are and what makes you happy and how you define success, Steve, I think it's timeless. And you mentioned like how you just got to kind of just get going on something, and you're not going to be as good at it in the beginning, and you're just going to have to crack away at it, and you're going to have to kind of just keep leaning into it. I mean, that's kind of what we've learned, is that you just kind of have to keep chipping away at it. That, look, the motorhome that we had in that you saw at that conference, it was broken down, it was beat up, it was barely like moving, and that was such an indicator of just kind of like what it kind of requires to build an organization and to pursue a career that you enjoy at the end of the day. Because what we were doing, it really lit us up. We really enjoyed it, and we were kind of, it was pouring into us as much as we felt we were sharing out to communities and to other students. So yeah, and
So
to
yeah,
answer, we'd do it again tomorrow. We'd start it, we'd start it over, and we do it all. We would do another lap around the track, so to speak.
well, I'm glad you're still with it and you're still evolving it, and there's still so much more potential. So you haven't even come close, I don't think, to what you can actually do. You said something that I hadn't thought about too much, is like you are kind of on the cusp of this storytelling evolution, I think, because now it's such a conversation everywhere you go about how important stories are, and you need to tell the stories to really grasp what's happening. And that's what you were doing before. I mean, everyone's told stories. I mean, I think my grandparents were the best storytellers. You know, they could always tell you these great stories, but I don't think I put that in the context of how the stories can help, you frame what you want to do with your life, or frame how you can create the life you want, or whatever it is. So you really, I think we're ahead of that curve. So congrats on that number.
Thank you, thank you. That's unintentional. I think we just bumped into that side, but it does raise a point, Steve. I'm like, you know, a GPA and a resume and credentials will get you so far. And, there is a point where you do have to look at the holistic of like, why do you want to do this? Where, how does this feed into just your overall well-being? And I do think that needs to be measured in today's economy, or in today's state of like, GPAs and credentials are critical, but I just don't think they're the only thing. Just like a salary, like a salary, just the numbers alone, I just don't think paint the whole picture of like really what is the opportunity and the satisfaction, and the just the overall, like, kind of happiness and morale.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a good point. I run an organization that's based on, academic performance and success. So I obviously see the importance of that, but I think that does need to be carried over into people having experiences and learning things from other people that can help them create. Your GPA is not going to create your life and your future. It needs a whole lot more attached to it. Which is why I've always loved being able to promote what you guys are doing to our members, and seeing some of our members get involved with the program over the years. It's been really nice.
Yeah.
Did I read somewhere like that you're one of the longest running series or programs on public television? Did I see that somewhere?
I don't know. This old house is up there in episode count, but we've been I mean, we've had a great run on public television. We continue to broadcast over 90 million households a year on public television, but we
It's
might be
been
one of
like
the
how many years?
it's
Hasn't
been
it been
it's been
like
it's
14
been
years or
longer. It would have been
20 years?
in 2004. So it's on, yeah, 20 years we've been on public television.
Yeah, so I don't know
Yeah.
where I read this, but it popped up somewhere, and then I'm like, oh, look at those guys still at it. That's really good. So
I'd have to look. You keep
yeah,
reminding me of my age. I'd have to look at that, Steve, of how
I
long
know.
we.
Well, together we can remember things. You put both of our heads together, we can
There you
remember
go.
something or another. Um, You also said something a minute ago that I always think about when I'm talking to students. And I think especially now trying to talk more to high school students, even a little bit about this. Everyone's always like, you should do something that you're passionate about. And I think the truth about passion is you can never know what it is until you do stuff. Like you have to, I don't think you're born with a passion. You've had to have an experience, right? That tells you or informs you that you love it or you don't love it, or you could do this for the rest of your life, regardless of how much money you're making necessarily, because it's something you're passionate about. And that's where I see that what you've done has really been a big part of helping people kind of see the passion opportunities or the passion places. And you must hear that a lot from students who have participated in all of your programs, right?
Yeah, it's the passion, we struggle with that word early on because it does describe a bit about kind of what drove and the motivation behind our approach to career
Mm-hmm.
exploration. But I think you hit the two other ones that we identify with a bit more, which is experiential, which is having
Mm-hmm.
experiences, and interest based. I think you could put a finger on interest. I think sometimes passion gets a little lofty and a little ambiguous, and it's like, well, it can kind of evolve and move. But for us, an interest based approach became something that we felt we wanted to stand stronger on and be louder about,
Mm-hmm.
because there's so many different ways that you can physically look around a room or a college or a high school and say, okay, what are my interests? Like, what do I like to read? What are the books that I gravitate towards? What are the magazines? What sports, what channels do I watch? For us, we saw all of that as opportunities to build a road trip of leaders who are doing interesting things that you really haven't considered to be career paths. And so that to us was the
Mm-hmm.
beginning of how you build a road trip, or how you built a life based on what you like to do. And then you back into, okay, to have a similar career path, what do I need to earn? What do I need to obtain? What do I need to do? But I think having those experiences to help guide you, um, and a little bit of an interest base to kind of help with a compass, can really guide you. So now when you think about
Mm-hmm.
high school students going to college, I would definitely be encouraging them to think about, what is that exit strategy? What career do I want after that? And you kind of back into that, not just for engagement, but also just so there's retention, so they know that there's a purpose behind what they're doing and why they're doing it and why they're pursuing this path or why they're pursuing that degree. And so that's why Steve, so much of what the work you've been committed to is so much of where Road Trip, we wish we would have done we wish we would have had our experience earlier on in our college experience. We did it as we were transitioning
Mm-hmm.
out as seniors leaving college. We wish we would have had this earlier on in high school, even, or in college, which is why so much of the work we're doing now is focused on high school students and early college. But to have the experience to really align
Mm-hmm.
your interests to different pathways, and then to map an appropriate degree or you know apprenticeship into that would just be, to us, is
Yeah.
like perfect alignment.
Yeah, I keep hearing more and more people, maybe not enough, but more people need to be encouraging high school students to think about, like, you should think about an internship when you're in high school, or you should think about, finding people in your community that you can shadow for a day or two and see and learn more about what they do, just to start getting exposed to some things that might help you think about this before you get to college. I think the days of the career center where, students are like, oh, I'm about to start my senior year, I better go think about what I'm going to do with my life or what I'm going to do next. You've almost missed a lot of opportunities now if you wait until you're kind of winding down college. I think it has to almost start beforehand. And so I do think all the work that you are doing is really helping a lot of students to think that through. So kudos to you for that. We just have to keep spreading the word and making sure more people know about it.
You,
That's
you, you
that's
mentioned
what
experience.
that's my charge.
It's so true,
That's
Steve. I appreciate the head nod on that. But you mentioned exposure, and so much of what we've realized over the years is just like, if you can see it, you can be it. And how do you provide more
mhm,
exposure? And then for us, how do we layer on having experiences that build out that social capital to where you actually feel that others like you have pursued and defined roads that are both
mhm.
financially successful as well as just kind of, just their own health and well-being. And so That's a
Mhm.
huge point that you mentioned, which is just exposure to those career opportunities. And yeah, they are not always, they're not just found anymore within libraries or career centers. Like for us, we kind of,
Right.
like, there's so many different ways to find those, whether it's on different platforms and Pinterest and, you name it, Instagram. I mean, there's just so many different careers and different pathways now that we find it so exciting.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we were talking about this, like that we sort of frame this whole scholar scoop conversation as, college, career, and life, but they don't always go in that order anymore. I think a lot of times students will wrap up, high school and want to take a gap year or take some time off or do something for a while and really think about what they want to do if they do choose to go to college. And I've heard more and more students thinking about, well, maybe I find that opportunity or that passion or that purpose thing that doesn't require a college degree. And I think that's okay. And so I'm glad we're getting to that point where you can actually learn and do and experience things that maybe don't necessarily need all that goes along with getting a college degree. Even though I'm a huge advocate for college, I think it's a great thing, but it's not for everybody. And so you can skip over those things. You can go from one phase to another. It doesn't always have to go in the order that you might have been conditioned to believe it has to go in or something. So, are you seeing any interest in the work that you do coming from non-traditional students, for example, like maybe people that have been working for a while that are coming back to college, or some of these high school students that you started working with wanting to maybe skip over college for a while? Is that coming up in your work at all?
Oh, absolutely. You just hit on a huge, I don't want to call it a population, but just a different learner, a different student, which is
Mhm.
one of the kind of areas that we've evolved the most at Road Trip Nation is our road trippers. Like our
Mhm.
road trippers now are a lot of returning adults
Mhm.
in 2 year schools that are just going back for AAs and looking at mobility, and it's amazing to see, and it's so exciting and rewarding to see that like the learner has changed, and it's just
Mhm.
different. And for us, it doesn't change our approach at all, but it definitely expands a when we went to college, we had a different kind of student body, so to speak, and it's really changed over the years. And so for us, we've definitely seen an evolution of learners and road trippers that have participated in our programs, without a doubt, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we've had that experience too. We have a lot of students now that join NSCS that are non-traditional students, and they bring a lot of perspective to the things that we're doing, and they have a lot of insight. And oftentimes, what's been fascinating for me, there's a higher sense sometimes of pride, I think, when our non-traditional students participate in things or even getting invited to join is almost like, oh my gosh, this is such a great accomplishment that I've worked so hard to get to. And I think it's just because they've had some life experience that they see it like, oh wow, this is really a culminating moment for me. So I can imagine it's probably true for the students that participate in your program too. It's like I get the chance to do this, and it's such a great way to bring a lot of things together, I'm sure.
And like you, Steve, I like, we are huge advocates of 4 year schools. We're not saying it's for everybody, but with your I guess your equation or your sequence, I would definitely go college, life, and career. To your
Hmm.
point of, I just feel like once you have some life experiences, or if you have other shared experiences, it it can direct you in different ways for a career. And I just think sometimes if those are flipped the other way around, you actually don't know how to apply those. One of the first interviews we had in 2001 was Randy Comazar, and he wrote this book about the deferred life program, where you work a 9 to 5, you work a 9 to 5 5 days a week, and then you do what you love on the weekends. And he's like, is that really the best approach? Like, what if you integrate what you love to
Hmm.
do during the 9 to 5 5 days a week? Anyways, it really changed our perspective of, do we just want to defer a life for a career, and then we'll just at some point be in a place where we could flip those and maybe retire and then
Mhm.
enjoy it. It's like, anyways, we really challenge that concept, Steve. And I would say that that's where it really drives me over all the years to really think through. I think it's so important to find a life and to have a life and to have identity in the life. And then you'll find a career that
Mhm.
supports it. You will.
Yeah, I think sometimes people maybe aren't patient enough or they're not back to the purposeful thing again. Maybe they're not purposeful enough in the ways that they're trying to pull that all together. Because it doesn't happen usually on a path that you would expect. It's always something that comes along where you, like you said, you meet people because you're on a doing something. You're out there. You meet somebody that can pull you into public television or but if you're not out there doing something, it's hard to see how you would make those contacts or connect those dots or other things. So I guess you need to just get on the road and start creating something, right? With your life.
Totally.
That's what you've been doing now for over 25 years. Well, I don't want
Yeah.
to take up too much of your time, but I would like to, and just thinking about everything that's happened, what's your general kind of one or two pieces of advice, which you've given a lot already, but if you could think about something maybe that we haven't talked about or that you would just like to let people know that are thinking about their career, fill in the blank, where whatever that might be.
Yeah, I would say it's something I tell road trippers as they prepare for our road trips is you don't lose yourself in the shuffle, whether you're a high school student thinking about a college or whether you're a college student thinking about what industry do I want to get into and how do I make a first impression and what jobs and what how do I network and how do I build social capital and who do I run into, to not lose yourself in that shuffle, to really kind of just zero in on, you know, who am I, what makes me happy, what makes me tick, what's my
Mhm.
identity, and then to put that forward. And that will lead with sincerity, it will lead with authenticity, it will lead you into finding the right fits at the right time. I guess I would just really encourage people that may come across this podcast, Steve, is just don't lose yourself in the shuffle of admissions and internships and employment. Keep moving. Momentum is really important, and you can create momentum by just putting one foot in front of the other, and you've got to adjust to failure and adversity. Those are going to be a part of it. It's going to be part of the movement, but as long as you are
Yep.
moving and you're not stagnant, we have found good things to happen. And I've got 25 years of building road trips and nonprofit organization like yourself that momentum and putting things into action, it it pays off.
I appreciate that, Brian. And I really do appreciate you and Mike and Gabe for what you've created and the number of lives that you've impacted. And I'll certainly encourage people to go check out, your website and find out all the resources that are there to help with identifying this career path and this road. So thank you so much for spending some time with me. And I look forward to doing this again sometime soon.
Thanks for having me.